select races in this car against this caliber field. Brett Suggs has had a strong start to the year. Could Ace be the place where he breaks out in a big way? Connor Zillish trying to get the one that got away. He's going to start in fourth tonight. Katie Hettinger's had a great start to the year. Can she end up in victory lane? And oh, by the way, our points leader in Mike Hopkins starting back in 14th spot. This is going to be fun.
Yes, it is. And I think these drivers competing for so much with the introduction of the Keen Corvette Parts Challenge that is opening tonight at Ace Speedway. Both pro late models and late model stock car drivers going to be competing across divisions to see who can gain the most points at Ace. Hickory, South Boston, Caraway. Going to be a fun night here at Ace.
Caden Quapple brings us down for the start, and we are underway with the Car Store Pro Late Models at Ace, and it is Quapple who jumps out to the early lead. Brett Suggs trying to fill the hole on the inside of Luke Baldwin. The black 15 outside Baldwin, the red 15. Suggs on the bottom, side by side for second, while Quapple leads lap one.
And I know it's not too uncommon to see multiples of numbers here in the Cars Tour, but the fact that so many of them have been so strong this year. Mike Hopkins, of course, we know it's well chronicled, looking for his third straight victory to start this race. But you see the 215 side by side there with Brett Suggs and Luke Baldwin. I was talking to Brett Suggs yesterday. He missed the first round of practice. He is a salesman for Continental Tire. He had a conference call, and he had to miss opening practice. He committed to that conference call and said, I'll be there. And then he looked at when opening practice was. So missed the hour-long session yesterday, but you know what? For a driver that has not been to this racetrack before, I think it's working out well for him as he goes up to second.
That's a great story there on Suggs, who, as you mentioned, moves into the runner-up spot. We'll drop back a little bit here. That's the 07 of Clint King making his first start of 2023 down at the inside of Decatur. Flash up a little bit further forward. You see that number 28 car, Brent Cruz. That is the team that Isabella Robusto nearly drove up to victory lane. That's a Wilson Motorsports fielded entry. Cruz, of course, finished third in that race. Check that second at Hickory Motor Speedway. Robusto, unfortunately, injured in a crash at the end of that Pro Late Model event. She's home recovering with the effects of a concussion. We wish her the best and cannot wait to see her back at the racetrack. But this team has tagged Brent Cruz to be the fill-in driver, and he is in a very hot and heavy battle with Austin McDonald as they trade a little paint on the back straightaway.
And this was exactly how Hickory ended for Brent Cruz. You can think of that shot of Mike Hopkins sideways in front of the field, checkered flag in hand. Well, Cruz was the driver that was directly behind him, and new number on the car, but trying to do all he can to try to move forward and making good use of the outside lane right now. Again, that's not something we often see. As you can see all the exhaust here as these drivers are lifting into the corner. So much momentum in these pro late models. But I got to say, Brent Cruz giving that outside lane a whirl here at Ace. Not something you see very often as Nick Loden makes contact with Cruz off of turn number 2.
Loden is someone who certainly wants to do everything possible to make sure that that car is pointed straight all race long. At Southern National, got turned on the white flag. On the green-white checker attempt at Hickory, got hooked head-on into the outside wall. They brought the yellow car back out here today. He's running up in the top 10, but has already made some contact with Cruz, who continues to struggle on the top side of the racetrack. Left side of your picture, Katie Hettinger in the 81, Luke Baldwin in the black 15. That's a battle for fourth.
And again, Katie Hettinger was so strong at Hickory. We talked about how fast she was in each of the practices there. Goes out on lap 1, gets tight, hits the outside wall at the exit of turn 2. Car was never really the same after that, but still was able to get a 6th place finish. Has been relatively quick in the top 5 each of these practice sessions, whether they're on their mock run, whether they're on scuffs, anything. Hettinger has been up at the front of the field. Is almost contact there with Luke Baldwin off of turn 4, and we do have a spinner off of turn 4 as well. Caution flag is out for the first time tonight, and that is Ashton Higgins. Spun around here just past the RC Powered Steering restart zone.
Higgins came into the night third in points, 18 markers out behind that of Mike Hopkins, the points leader. Higgins coming off of back-to-back top 10 finishes at both Southern National and Hickory, finished 7th and 8th respectively. And the driver for the ALH Motorsports, number 9 team out of Weaverville, North Carolina, is unfortunately facing the wrong way early in this race, right as we were at a point where I think we were going to start to mention some of the green flag lap rules that are in effect for the pro late models and the late model stocks, but that will not be something that is of a talking point at this juncture. As Higgins is able to get that car rewrited, he will join the tail end of the pack, but we slow the field 11 laps in after the Higgins slide off 4.
You know, this is going to provide an opportunity for really the first time since we implemented the choose cone back after Southern National Motorsports Park. Now, we've only seen the choose once in the pro late model side at Hickory. We've seen it twice in the late model stocks, but this is really the first track where, we've seen one dominant groove. Of course, at Florence and at Hickory, when we were there with the Solid Rock Carriers car store, really a whole lot of options of whether you want to go low, whether you want to go high. You can make your car really work at either juncture. Here at Ace, not necessarily going to be the case. I think this is going to be the first race where a lot of communication is going to have to go between driver and team to decide, well, when is it worth taking the outside or when is it worth taking the inside? And it's highlighted by an orange line on the front. There's not a physical cone. They painted it on the racetrack on the front straight away amongst all the different lines that separate the lanes here at Ace. There is one bright orange line that is just at the start-finish line. We'll show it to you when we come back around. But you can see the end result. Suggs in second takes the inside, and Connor Zilish will try to take the lead from Quapple here.
Race director Danny Willard advised the field that would be the procedure for the choose cone or the choose line here tonight as we come into the KRC Power Steering and Restart Zone. Quapple, Zilish, the new front row setter. Zilish has an advantage there by about half a car length over Quapple. And for the first time tonight, Caden Quapple's got his hands full as we're nearly 3 wide behind him. The battle for the lead is on. Things starting to tighten up there amongst these two as Quapple starts to edge back out in front and cement the top spot at the end of the back straightaway. Zilish falls in behind. Suggs in third. Hettinger up to fourth. And Quapple is able to fend off the challenge by Connor Zilish, at least for now. Oh, trouble. And that's Cruz up into the wall as Luke Baldwin gets turned around and is hit by Jeff Batten. And another car, I believe that is Joshua Horniman, is well underneath the backside of Batten's machine. And Luke Baldwin's car is destroyed. The front end ripped off for that number 15 entry. And for the third race in a row, Jeff Batten is going to find himself in some misfortune. And this may very well be the third DNF for the B&J Racing number 48 team after retiring at both Southern National and Hickory early in each event.
Well, this is the fear that we were talking about coming into this race with this scenario, with all of these races packed in the schedule. North Wilkesboro up next. This is the last scenario that either of these teams wanted to face with race cars that are very damaged and destroyed. You can see Horniman underneath Batten sitting in 1 and 2, and curious to see exactly where this happened. I know Baldwin had fallen back a couple of positions since the drop of the green flag. He started in the second spot, and yet had fallen back to about 5th or 6th or so. They were side by side, further back in the pack. This is how it happened. Again, entering turn 1. Looks like a little bit of contact with Austin McDonald.
Boy, and McDonald then goes up and doors the side of Sutton. Cruz gets hip checked up into the wall, and Baldwin's car is sitting there for quite some time, and Batten and Horniman just pile in.
McDonald tears the nose off of his car. Cruz into the wall. Mike Hopkins does a good job of avoiding that one. Multiple angles. Good job of our camera crew for capturing that. As you can see Baldwin climb out of his race car, and so unfortunate for him. Making several of his planned starts. Ace was one of them. North Wilkesboro was one of them.
Take a look at this one more time, and it looks as though McDonald is way tight there down at the bottom of the racetrack, but right there the car just kind of hops its way up. Blake, not sure if you're more familiar with the layout of the racetrack on that side of the speedway. Is there any type of curving or transition maybe that could have shot McDonald up the racetrack?
There's a little bit there, but I think that may have just been a result of the contact into the left rear quarter panel of Luke Baldwin, and I think would have caused that those cars were already making contact, and that's kind of what threw the nose of the 13 up. But again, unfortunate here. George Phillips, we know he's been involved in a couple of incidents, does a great job avoiding that one. Again, Mike Hopkins drives through as well. But it has been a busy night here for the track crew at Ace Speedway. They do a fantastic job as always, but fortunately having to take the wrecker out there to take away some race cars.
Luke Baldwin, fresh off of a 7th place finish at Hickory, was one of the fastest cars in practice throughout the day and was running up inside the top 10. And you see Jeff Batten there trying to do what he can to help the track record crew get these cars detached. And it's very ironic to see Luke Baldwin's car with that level of damage. Looks very similar to what Kyle Campbell had to go through at Hickory. Hopefully they don't have to put a new front clip on that car, but it appears as though that damage has gone pretty deep there into the noses. We are under a red and yellow condition. So a handful of cars that have come down on the main straightaway pit area are in a position to have their cars serviced, even though the field is stopped on the back straightaway. So while the cleanup continues down in turn number 2, we are going to step aside here as we are under caution for a multi-car crash in turn 2. We'll be back with more action here from Ace in just a moment. Welcome back to the Ace Speedway, where we are under the red and yellow flag here, just a handful of laps into the Solid Rock Carriers Pro Late Model portion of the AcceleratorGraphics.com 315. After Luke Baldwin got turned in front of oncoming traffic, Jeff Batten, Joshua Horniman, and others had nowhere to go. Now, the red-yellow condition means that some drivers who are able to come down the pit lane can, in fact, work and repair their race cars under these types of conditions, while cleanup continues down in turn number 2 with Caden Quapple, the quick time setter and Male Pole Award winner, still out in front of the field, ahead of Connor Zilish, who was able to utilize the choose cone on the ensuing restart prior to the caution to move up in the second spot, ahead of Brett Suggs, who rounds out the top 3 on your screen. Now, while this race is just in its infancy, the late model stock cars are standing by on deck, and we are highlighting a lot of the names that are starting to surface as far as who will be taking up some of those owners' provisionals at North Wilkesboro Speedway on May 17th. And Blake, as we came on air a little bit earlier, we had some news break on that front.
Yes, we did. We looked at Twitter. Of course, earlier this week, it was announced that Chase Briscoe would be amongst some of the drivers that will be joining the likes of Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Kevin Harvick in joining us at North Wilkesboro Speedway in the late model stocks, but it is not just them. They've also announced today from Trackhouse Racing that both Daniel Suarez and Ross Chastain will be a part of the goings at North Wilkesboro Speedway, with more to come. Again, these announcements are not done, but I'm loving over these last few days, and hopefully the next few days, that we continue to see more names that continue to build up this field that you see sitting in front of you right here, and that names like that, a NASCAR Xfinity Series champion. I think there's even a former Cup Series champion that has yet to be announced that will be joining us. So there is so much to look forward to when we talk about North Wilkesboro and the late model stocks.
The rumor mill has been a fun place in the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour pit area as far as who may be able to grasp what seat, what car is available. And also we may see some surprise name on the Pro Late Model entry list as well. So obviously, no matter who is able to sign up there on the entry blank, we know that event is going to be must-see and must-watch. And tickets are, in fact, still available. It is a Wednesday evening show. And, of course, we'll be bringing that to you live on FloRacing as well. And a lot of anticipation leading up to that. And one of the big storylines of the late model stock front has been the top 26 in owners points. There was a big shakeup there after qualifying, and we'll touch on that a little bit more when we get closer to the late model stock portion of our program. But let's check in once more with our buddy James Pike, who is down in the pits with a report.
I've got Luke Baldwin with me. Luke, just take us through your perspective on what happened in turn 1 and 2.
Well, going into 3, I got driven through to start with, which got me jacked sideways, and then I thought I was plenty clear down the straightaway. Then going into 1, drove a normal line, just got driven again, flat over, and guys in the back, I don't know, I guess didn't check up, had nowhere to go. I don't know, it's my job to say, but got straight over.
Were you happy with the pace that you showed throughout the weekend? It's going to be the finish that you want, but strong practice speed, one of those cases where it encourages you to come back in.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we were really fast all weekend. Scott Anderson, Chris Walker, all the guys. My dad gave me a great car, and I felt like we had good pace in the race. We were just slowing it down, trying to save our stuff, be there at the end, not get caught up in anything, and people are in over their heads and just, I don't know, kind of take advantage of you and think it's their job to drive straight over you, but it is what it is. Hopefully we'll be back at Wilkesboro and show the same speed again and have a good night there.
Tough end to a really strong weekend for Luke Baldwin.
You got a feel for Luke, being that it was only 13 laps into this race when it all came undone after the pace that he was able to show in practice. And, you know, Luke is someone who's already had a great year. If you think back to the World Series of Asphalt down at New Smyrna Speedway, picked up 2 victories in a 602 or crate asphalt modified, also won the championship for that particular class there, and has been starting to dabble more into these pro late models. But as you can see, that car for Walker Motorsports is badly, badly damaged. And the one thing that Luke said there in the interview is we hope to make it to Wilkesboro, and this is the greatest fear for these competitors. Granted, we're 12 days away from that race, but considering the fact that many of these teams, the people who put their hands and massage and work on these race cars, there's a lot of other things they're doing during the week. We hope there's enough time for Luke and everyone who was involved in that skirmish to be able to have their cars repaired and ready when they start to load in at North Wilkesboro in less than 2 weeks' time now.
Yeah, and that's just one of the things with how much this series has grown and with the car counts that are continuing to rise in this series. Just the amount of competition here is just, it's on another level, and you hate to see that. You know, we want that to continue to be healthy. We want these cars and these teams to be able to come back out and continue racing here in the Solid Rock Carriers car store. So just real unfortunate there for Baldwin, for Horniman, everybody who's wrapped up in that. And, of course, there's still a long way to go here at Ace tonight. You know, 87 laps, I think, is what we have left here. So, you know, it's up to these drivers to make sure we kind of get to the end of this race all clean. As you can see, a lot of the attention, a lot of the track crew still continuing to work hard. Most of the work has been completed in 1 and 2. I believe I see right now, you can see it at the top of your screen. Most of the work are starting to head into that truck that's parked in turn 2, and I think that will be the last one that will be pulling off before we get things going here. So I know this track crew, they really showed their expertise in the limited late models when we had opening night here. We had some fantastic racing, some clean racing in all of our divisions on opening night. The limited late models got a little tested, but that's what that track crew, they're trained to do, and they have been on the money here at Ace this season.
Now, for the late model stock competitors, this is the first of 2 visits here to Ace Speedway. They come back to this venue again on August 11th. and what will be a good opportunity for drivers to set themselves up for the stretch run to the end of the 2023 campaign. And, Blake, there's another incentive that was announced leading into this race that kicks off here tonight. A 4-race stretch includes 4 different races at 4 different venues. The 2023 Keen CorvetteParts.net Challenge, $17,500 in a prize pool for the drivers who can accumulate the most points here tonight at Ace, at Hickory Motor Speedway July 29th, South Boston Speedway October 7th, and the season finale at Caraway on November 4th. That could be for either a pro late model competitor or a late model stock competitor. So there is a lot to look forward to there as far as how that program kicks off, and we'll be tracking it for you here all year long. Let's go down trackside and check in with Pike once again.
Eric, I just talked to Austin McDonald. He was in his pit stall getting his car fixed up after the incident, and I asked him what his side of the events in 1 and 2 were, and his response was pretty simple. He said, I was on the bottom, and I got chopped. There's nothing else to it. So I wasn't exactly happy about the way things went down, from what I could tell.
And as you can see, a little bit of battle scars have already developed there on the King Freight Lines number 13 of Austin McDonald, who hails out of Nova Scotia, Canada. A driver who picked up a win in the season finale at Caraway 1 year ago. And as you could hear, 2 differing sides to the story as to how that skirmish unfolded down in turn number 1. McDonald, though, is able to live to fight another lap, while Baldwin's team will be trying to figure out how to get that car back in the hauler. As they hit the choose cone this time through, I should say the choose line on the main straightaway, we are a lap away from the restart. And it looks as though Connor Zilish was happy with the way the outside lane worked the last time. He's going to try it again.
Well, and I think Zilish did a great job on that restart trying to fend off Quapple. But the other thing is that I know we talk about Ace Speedway somewhat being a single-lane racetrack. If anything, the pro late models, I think, are better set up to run that outside lane. These cars are hitting the chips so much earlier on the straightaway, particularly early in these runs. If anything, that halts the momentum for a lot of these guys. They're hitting max speed halfway down the straightaway. That's going to help that outside lane a little bit. So at least early on, I think Zilish has a shot to hold him off.
87 laps to go. We're back underway. And again, Zilish tries to door his way to the race lead as Quapple had his hands full in turn 1. And Zilish is drawn even with the 96 at the end of the backstretch, and they hit again. Side by side for the lead. Quapple by inches that time through as he tries to muscle his way back up in front of Zilish, who cuts back underneath. He's got a fender inside.
That is a classic crossover here at Ace Speedway, and Zilish not quite able to get all the way down to the bottom. Gives up that spot, and Quapple and Zilish, I think, are setting ourselves up for one heck of a race here up front between 2 very talented drivers. And don't forget about Brett Suggs, is kind of waiting in the wings a little bit as well. You saw Nick Loden just go by. Well, he had a little bit of contact right there as Clint King and that 07 of the 43 of Loden get together. Maybe even be a little bit of damage, I believe, on that. Well, we were just talking about the Keen Parts Corvette Challenge on that Corvette.
Clint King trying desperately to get ahead of Loden there on the outside in that black 07. This is Clint King's first start of the season. Made 2 starts a year ago. His best finish was 8th at Motor Mile Speedway. King trying to battle his way further up the running order. In fact, he runs in the 8th position right now, with Loden doing everything possible to continue to bring the fight to him as King gets loose off 4.
You're not going to be able to sustain that very long, sliding that right rear, although again, tire wear not the concern here at Ace. I know we mentioned at the top of the broadcast it is going to be all of those brakes as Loden still trying to find his way by. Clint King doing a great job holding Loden down at bay, but of course the talented youngster is just behind them in Tristan McGee, and he's hoping that they eventually sort it out so that he can try to make his way by.
The preferred line does certainly appear to be the bottom, but Clint King is putting up a valiant fight. Now McKee is going to want to try to fill that void that is being created there to the inside of that 07 off turn 2, but he can't quite do it as King slots between Loden and the 43 and McKee in the 7 as they all start to close up on Dalston Sutton while the race for the lead begins to intensify.
Yeah, these 2 cars very even through all the practices, through the early portion of the running tonight. Both these cars look equally as sporty, and Hayden Quapple, again, very successful here last year in the Pro Late Model Division. One of his 2 wins came at Ace Speedway, but back here for third, Katie Hettinger, also been very strong, looking to get her way by Brett Suggs. She's able to do that, and Suggs may now be under attack for fourth as well from TJ DeClaire, making his Cars Pro Late Model debut.
DeCare there down on the inside at Orlando Lakes, Florida. We talked about Austin McDonald coming from Canada. DeCare has made the haul from down south from the Tampa region. And this young star who picked up a Carolina Pro Late Model win earlier this year at Dillon Motor Speedway is now starting to make some noise in the car sanctioned Pro Late Model series. And he is now up to fourth.
He does a great job making his way by. Again, that is fourth for DeCare. And still your top 2 separated by maybe just a little bit more than a car length now as they approach the lap traffic of Kyle Campbell, who's a little bit in front of them, would be the first instance of lap traffic for both these cars. And again, another thing that was mentioned in the drivers' meeting that's a little bit different than what we've had today is that the competition caution will also be thrown after 40 laps in both the Pro Late Model and Late Model stock divisions tonight, should we go green for 40 consecutive laps.
Typically, that gauge is 35 for the pros, so great pickup there as far as what we can expect tonight should this race stay green as Loden continues to battle with Dawson Sutton. One of the key identifiers between both Rackley War entries, Sutton has that fluorescent lining on the rear spoiler and the front valence of his car, while Connor Zilish, who is up in second spot, does not. It's going to be Loden getting the spot there. Here comes Clint King in the 07, Tristan McKee in the 7 car, all starting to accordion together for this race that is going on just inside, I should say just outside the top 5.
You see your 2 race leaders getting by Kyle Campbell that we were just talking about a little bit earlier. Again, a good effort for Campbell to get this car ready for this race tonight after what befell him at Hickory. That team thrashed away and just wanted to come out here and be able to finish the race, and at least being able to do that, albeit a little bit off the pace, but still running in the 19th position.
And we're starting to see Caden Quapple, the race leader. One of the big talking points that we have here often at Ace Speedway is brakes. We're going to be talking about it a lot more when it comes to the late model stock feature, but if you keep your eyes on that left front of Caden Quapple, you'll start to see, especially in turn number 3, where he could be getting on the binders a little bit too hard. And with 68 laps to go, that is a lot of red that we're starting to see there in that left front. Can Quapple make that last throughout the duration of this race?
Cherry red brake rotors, that is so common here at